past year has been one of the hardest for South Africans. It's a game between paying more for services that are sometimes not delivered versus the rising cost of living. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen massive job losses and a tanking economy, as well as rising food and service prices. Our reporters Dasen, Thathiah and Ayesha Ismail on the ground this hour here on the Midday View, speaking to South Africans about the pain in their pockets. Well, good afternoon, Ayesha and Dasen, but let me start with you in the mother city first. Ayesha, COVID-19 having a detrimental impact on small businesses. Many of them have, of course, shut down. You spoke to some business owners who got hit there, Ayesha.
That is correct, Dan. I spent hours in the Mitchells Plain area this morning talking to people about how they've been affected by COVID. And the town centre normally, and this is pre-COVID, would be bustling with hundreds of people selling their wares, selling fruit and vegetables, and just plying their trade there. Well, this morning when I went there, it was almost empty because people were saying they've lost their businesses, they were not able to return, and they thought that they would be able to pick up after the first wave. Then they were hit with a second wave and then a third wave, and now of course we're expecting a fourth wave. And on top of trying to make ends meet and trying to put food on the table, they're saying they now also have to pay high municipal bills, and they're saying they're just not coping at the moment. Now, it is a bit windy here in Blouberg, where I'm joined by the Deputy Mayor Ian Nielsen, and I had the option of doing the interview inside, but Dan, I decided to do the interview outside, where you can probably see this most amazing view of Table Mountain, and we can also see Robben Island in the background. But Mr. Nielsen, we were talking earlier, and I asked you what people who have these huge unpaid municipal bills, what do they do in order to get rid of these bills?
Well, first of all, it's very important to ensure that they're on the right packages. So particularly someone who's lost their job, for example, can within 1 month qualify as indigent. And we also have packages for pensioners and also people that are handicapped. And very often the problem is that people are still on rates and service charges that were meant for people with an income. So that's the first thing. People should contact the municipality and ensure that they're on the right tariff structure. And very often that will result in their bills being much lower than they already are. So anyone with a household income of less than 7,500 Rand a month can qualify for the indigent package. And any pensioner or handicapped person where the household income is less than 17,500 Rand a month can qualify for that package. So that's always the first step, to make sure they're on the right charges, and in some cases that can be backdated too, so that we can ensure that we're not overcharging people more than they should be charged in terms of our policies.
What about writing off arrears?
Well, certainly some months back, the council approved a very significant write-off package. We wrote off all the interest that had been accumulated on people's accounts. We also wrote off the entire bill for NGOs and churches, welfare organizations, because they also struggled very strongly, very difficultly during this period. But then we've also made an offer to everyone else, all the residential property owners who have bills that are more than 3 years old. We essentially make an offer to say, we will write off all your arrears that are more than 3 years old, provided you enter into a payment arrangement with us for the remaining amount of your debt. And of course, the payment arrangement will be based on what people's income is. But, you know, for someone who has now lost their job entirely, if they get on the indigent benefits, they will not be charged any property rates. They will be able to go onto the electricity lifeline tariff, which has some free electricity, and the rest of the sales are then at 40% of cost. We also have a rebate on the refuse charge, and also on the water charge. They will not have to pay the pipe fixed charge.
Now, Cape Town is often referred to as an unequal city. Is it true that people are treated differently, where the haves are treated differently to the poorer communities?
Well, we don't deal that way. The only way that it is different is that there are more beneficial packages for poor people, that they get charged less than wealthy people. In terms of service delivery, we have a standard approach across the city. No matter what part of the city is, we have a standard delivery approach. For example, that a library must be within 4 kilometers of a household, and other such standards. There are parts of the city where we are behind on that, but our key effort then is to bring those areas that are behind up to the standard that we have set. So they get preferential treatment in terms of expenditure, to ensure that we bring those services up to the same standard as the rest of the city.
In terms of the debt owed to the city, if you had to quantify that, what would that figure be?
Well, the arrears are currently running around 6 billion rand. That is about between 1 and 2 months worth of turnover. We have a turnover of about 3.5 billion rand a month here. So one must see that number in that light. We have a very high payment ratio in the city. In the last several years, payments have been 98% of billing. So that shows you that overall our package of rebates, of systems, are affordable to most of the people in the city. And then we do have the mechanisms to deal with those who still fall foul of write-offs and also of payment arrangements.
Thank you so much for your time. And that was the Deputy Mayor Ian Nielsen here in the city of Cape Town.
Thank you very much, the Ayesha Ismail. Now let's go to Durban. Let's go to KwaZulu-Natal. Dasen, we continue this focus. Of course, you also been speaking to small businesses. We know that many of them have shut down as well. They got badly hit by COVID-19.
Definitely, Dan. I mean, you've got the average citizen who's also battling with issues like job losses, retrenchment, salary cuts, and then you've had others who had started up these small businesses, and unfortunately, I think the timing for some of them was wrong, in the sense that as they were getting going, that's when COVID-19 had hit, and it meant that business really took a knock. But what also added to the situation here in KwaZulu-Natal in particular was the unrest, because that was also another period just not long ago that many people had the final nail in their coffin, so to speak, when it came to businesses that were already struggling. And I'm talking in particular here, Dan, of small businesses. And in the instance of, for example, the gentleman that I spoke to earlier, one of the interviews that I've done on this topic, Mr. Lucky Mlambo from Avoca, he was saying to me that he'd held many positions in big companies, and eventually when he had, after retrenchment, decided to go the route of starting his own business. He started a micro-lending business. By December last year, he realized that he could no longer sustain that. This was mostly because the people that he had lent money to primarily couldn't pay him back, because they too were dealing with their own struggles. And then to add to all of this, they are living in a time where the tariff increases and other hikes have not stopped. Here in eThekwini municipality, for example, electricity for the 2021-2022 year is meant to go up, or rather has gone up by 15%. Other increases between 4 and 8%. So that's certainly not stopping, and people need to deal with that. All in all, it's meant that it's been a rough time, and people have to find other ways to make ends meet. Let's listen into some of that interview I did with Mr. Mlambo.
When the hard lockdown started in April last year, it was difficult to do any business. We had to shut down the operations from the office, and you could not do any follow-up, you could not service any clients, you could not do anything from home. And when you still trying to figure out what to do, you have expenses, you have office that you need to still pay rental for, you still have to maintain other expenses, your household expenses as well. The banks are trying to make arrangements, how are you going to pay this and that. So it has been difficult. And for the whole year now, since that period till now, I haven't been doing anything. Obviously, you're still trying to see if you can still open your company, your business.
Well, Dasen Thathiah with Mr. Mlambo. They're ending that report from Durban, Tegwini. And of course, thank you to you as well, Ayesha, Ismail, both of you making me jealous here as I'm looking. Let me just look at the monitor. Wow. Look, just the scenery behind you, the beautiful oceans. Thank you very much, Ayesha, and thank you very much, Dasen. It's a serious issue indeed. We're all feeling the pain.